Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the JobsOhio Quarterly Board Meeting. Please welcome Chairman Bob Smith.
Good morning and welcome to JobsOhio's Quarterly Board of Directors meeting. We are pleased to be joined together in Columbus today at the Easton Hilton Inn. Welcome to my fellow board members, representatives of our 6 regional partner organizations, as well as our invited guests. Thank you all for making time to be here this morning. We are fortunate to be joined by Governor Mike DeWine and look forward to hearing his thoughts in a few moments. The board heard remarks yesterday from Lieutenant Governor John Husted during our private session. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for your analysis on the opportunities before us and how JobsOhio can continue to be aligned with the state's economic development priorities. Today's quarterly meeting will continue to show the momentum our state is gaining in a highly competitive and challenging fiscal environment. We were thrilled finishing 2022 with another record year on the books and heading into a new year with recent announcements like MedPace's 1,500 new jobs in pharmaceutical clinical development services in Cincinnati, Bellisio Foods' 177 new jobs toward frozen food production in Jackson County, Abbott Labs' 450 new jobs for its baby formula manufacturing plant in Bowling Green. Earlier this week, we celebrated the groundbreaking of Honda's new electric battery plant in Fayette County. These are just a few of the numerous projects around the state JobsOhio and our regional partners have invested in, along with the state of Ohio. And of course, being in Central Ohio today, construction has started on Intel's new fab that will create tens of thousands of jobs for the region. We look forward to hearing from JobsOhio President J.P. Nassif today. J.P. is going to offer a resounding cheers to our Jobs beverage system, who is now celebrating their 10-year anniversary. What fantastic results they've produced in a very short period of time. JP will also offer a deep dive into our inclusion efforts. Lastly, we will hear more about the successful creation and deployment of Ohio to Work as it transitions from JobsOhio. We are proud of the tens of thousands of Ohioans we could embrace and empower and the statewide impact this initiative made when it mattered the most. So before I open the floor to the governor, I think it's appropriate to also reflect on the incredible journey under his leadership during the last 4 years. The journey has been like any other Ohio governor in the modern era. As time goes on, and hopefully the vivid memories of COVID-19's clutch fade, the quick actions and leadership of the governor and his administration will be remembered by hardships endured and survived. We will remember the generational opportunities that blossomed in small towns and big cities, family farms and rolling country hills that indeed make our state and all of its people so unique and special. Governor, 4 years later, Ohio should be proud of the partnerships, collaborations, and lessons learned, and yes, many at great costs, that have made us stronger and ready to rise to further heights. We all look forward to the next 4 years with optimism, a sense of purpose, and the hope for a better tomorrow. With that, I welcome the 70th Governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine. Governor.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. This is an exciting time, I think, for all Ohioans. First of all, thank you. I want to thank the board and thank all the team members of JobsOhio. Our partnership that we've had with you, I think, has been a great partnership. Our first 4 years, we're looking to 4 more years of that great partnership, and I think it's really been a historic time in Ohio history. You talked about the Fayette County and the groundbreaking. It was, I know some of you in the audience were out there this week. Fran and I were out there for the groundbreaking of the new battery plant, and it's really quite something to see. They talked about the size of it being the equivalent of 76 football fields. So imagine 76 times what we see at Ohio State on Saturday afternoon or any other football field. But Fayette County, which has historically been a great agricultural community, continues to diversify, and it will always remain a great agricultural community. But with the new battery plant, it's taking really a giant leap forward. But it's not just Fayette County. I think one of the kind of the unique things about this plant and its location near Jeffersonville is it really will draw workers from 4 different regions of the state. The closest in time, at least, is Dayton, and the Miami Valley, Cincinnati, Southwest Ohio, Central Ohio, Columbus, and also clearly workers will come from some of our Appalachian counties. So again, it's a great win for Ohio, and just frankly our latest example of the partnership between JobsOhio and our administration and the people of Ohio. I want to talk a little bit about our budget that we presented to the General Assembly, because when we talk about economic development, we also have to look at other things. I want to just go through briefly a few of these items that are in the budget. Of course, as everyone knows, our job in the administration is to present a budget to the legislature, do it once every 2 years, and then legislature starts its work. And so there'll be many hearings that have already occurred, but just kind of outline how I believe this budget really is going to impact our economic future in the state of Ohio and our ability to grow jobs. First of all, what we envision in this budget is a continuation of what we've done in partnership with the legislature over the last 4 years, and in partnership with you, and that is to invest in our people. We all know that when a deal is put together to bring a company into Ohio or to see an Ohio company expand, kind of the last hurdle, but the hurdle you have to get over is the company has to be convinced that they can find the employees with the training that they need in the state of Ohio and in the region where they're going. And that is always the last hurdle. And it has to be cleared. If it's not cleared, no matter how good our incentive is, no matter how good everything else is that we put together, that's not going to work. So let me just start in our budget with a couple items. The All Ohio Future Fund, $2.5 billion is what we envision, and this really answers the question that we have seen, I've seen for 4 years, and many of you in JobsOhio have been there many years, have seen, and that is simply this. When companies want to come into Ohio or they want to expand and they're already in Ohio, they may have taken 10, 15 years to make the decision to get ready to do this, or however long it's taken them, but when they're ready to go, they're ready to go, and they got to move. And so this fund will be unique. This fund will give us the ability, and our regional partners, our 6 partners around the state, for them to pick the best sites and then make sure those sites are ready to go. And I think the passage of this and the setting aside of this money is going to be very important for every single region of the state, because every single region of the state has identified spots where we are going to have to develop, but sites where the leaders of that region and the leaders of JobsOhio believe, and our administration believe, if they're ready to go and they're gotten ready, they're going to sell, and we're going to be able to bring companies in. So it's really it will be a huge win. Not just for Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. It'll be a win for them, but it's going to be a win for every region, every single part of the state of Ohio. In addition to that, we have proposed innovation hubs to follow up on the innovation districts that we have in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. They are moving forward with good speed. But we also have our smaller cities in the state of Ohio. And frankly, I can tell you, after we unveiled this, there's been a great deal of interest. Whether I'm traveling into Dayton or Youngstown or wherever it is, the folks there are very excited about the prospect of being able to get an innovation hub, and really to kind of mirror, but with the local emphasis on what is already taking place with the innovation districts in the 3 Cs. So these are the two big really investments in our future that we've proposed. A third, of course, is infrastructure. The infrastructure has to be there. You know, it's roads, it's our water sewer, it's our broadband. And again, this budget that we presented really focuses on those as well. And we have to continue that work. We cannot get behind. We have to continue to be bold and push forward. Do things that have not been done before, for example, in regard to the broadband, and taking that broadband to absolutely every single region of the state of Ohio and every community in the state of Ohio. And finally is education, and probably the most important of all. And again, this is a responsibility that is, I think, in Ohio, we share this with our local communities. We are a state that believes in local control, but we also know that the governor and the state legislature have a very significant responsibility in this area. So again, let me just maybe highlight a few things. We look, and of course the relevance is obvious to what you all do, and that is if we do not have workers, companies don't come, companies will not expand. As you all know, we are creating jobs in Ohio now faster than we have people to fill them. And so if you look at the short run, but if you also look at the long run of where we need to go in Ohio, education, education, education. And we define education as everything from that impacts education, impacts who our workers are going to be and what their training is, everything from prenatal care all the way to a 50 or 60-year-old employee in a company who needs his or her skills upgraded. And if you look at our budget, we've got everything from one end to the other, everything in between. Just to mention a few things. And there was, I think, a very good article in this morning's Columbus Dispatch that I saw. It was online earlier. But it has to do with reading and our proposal, and it's a very bold proposal. We still are seeing too many of our kids who are not reading at the level they should be by 3rd grade. And reading is just the key. It is the key to everything. It's a key to get you inside the door. And if these kids don't have that key and can't get inside the door, there's so many other things that they simply cannot do. So we have put money behind what we proposed. There's been debates in regard to how you teach kids to read. I'm an old county prosecuting attorney, and as we used to say, the jury's back. We have the results, and it's clear that the science of reading, phonics, it's clearly how we improve reading. We've seen it done in other states with dramatic changes. We need to see those dramatic changes in Ohio. So we've put money behind this. And what we've said is in our budget, we will provide curriculum in any school district in the state. Some of the school districts have held back and said, look, we've already invested in something else. This is not, what are we going to do? We can't just throw this out the window. What we're saying to them is, let's follow the science. Let's follow what clearly is the broad consensus now among reading experts. And so we pay for in this budget, we would pay for the new curriculum, and for many schools it's not new, but for those schools that aren't doing it now, it would be for them a different curriculum. And we also will pay for the training of teachers. It's bold, it's strong, it will make a huge difference in kids' lives. Let me just mention a couple other things. Mental health. Since the day I took office, or right after that when we presented our first budget, we provided about $650 million in our budget for our schools to focus on mental health and wellness. We know that kids cannot live up to their full potential. Adults cannot live up to their full potential if they have an untreated mental health problem. And if kids have problems in school, Many times that can be caused by a mental health problem. And so again, setting aside that money, we do it again in this budget for the third straight budget. It makes a difference. Many of our business leaders have talked to me and other community leaders, particularly in our urban areas, about the importance of being able to increase the amount of money that we are paying to our high-performing, let me put an emphasis on high-performing charter schools. This makes a difference. In our last budget, our first two budgets, we increased those funds. We make a dramatic increase in this budget. That's simply going to mean that we're going to have high-performing charter schools that are going to be able to expand and have more kids in these schools. The other thing it is going to do is enable communities to bring in to these urban areas schools that have already demonstrated that they know what they're doing, that they can take care of it, and work with kids. Career Tech, Fran and I have, and the Lieutenant Governor have been in so many different of our high school Career Tech. They're doing absolutely a phenomenal job, and it's just so exciting to see and talk with these juniors and seniors, sometimes sophomores, freshmen, and to find them having a real passion for what they're doing and see their excitement. We believe that every child who graduates from high school should be on some pathway. They may change their mind, they may change the pathway, but some pathway when they get out there, whether that's to go to college, whether that is to go into an apprenticeship, whether that is to continue the job that they've had for the last several years as an auto mechanic, whatever that is, but they need to be on a pathway. And so this budget that we presented presents significant investment in Career Tech as well. For those who go to college, we provide scholarships, increasing the number of our children who will qualify for what we call the OCOG scholarships, as long as they're going to an Ohio school, one of our 75 private institutions, or one of our 14 public institutions. We've increased the amount of money for scholarships for these kids. We'll keep more of these kids in the state of Ohio. We've also, for the first time, provided merit scholarships. If you're in the graduating top 5% of your graduating class in high school, you will have this $5,000 scholarship for each of 4 years, a total of up to $20,000. Again, other states are doing this. We have to do that. We have to keep our kids here. We have to keep the most high-performing kids here, and this is one way that we can do it. I mention all this because the work that you do, and again, I want to just congratulate JobsOhio, congratulate the JobsOhio team. We work very closely with you. You do a great job, and the results are very, very evident, as we've seen over the last few years. But if we don't do our job in regard to education, in regard to infrastructure, in regard to making sure that we are setting aside money in the budget targeted for economic development, if we don't do our job, then we will not achieve the results that we know that we can, in fact, achieve. So it's a great partnership. Mr. Chairman, we appreciate members. We appreciate your great work. We appreciate the partnership, and thank you all for what you do. And I'll turn it back to the chairman.
Thank you, Governor. And very impressive budget that was submitted, and obviously you have our full support in many, many areas of alignment. And as I referenced earlier, we talked with the Lieutenant Governor yesterday about how we can be helpful for that, so thank you. Let's move to kind of the official business of the meeting. Just a reminder, the board met yesterday from 8 to 5 in committee meetings, and a board meeting in the afternoon for some other matters. And so a lot of activity happened that you won't necessarily see the details today, but you hear about the outcomes. So let's begin with the approval of our minutes from December 9. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks, Rick. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Sally. All in favor, vote aye. Opposed? Thank you. Let's move to the President's report. JP.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor DeWine, thank you very much for being here today. One quarter into 2023, and it's an exciting time for Ohio. Today, we're excited to be joined by Ohio's visionary governor, Mike DeWine. The DeWine-Husted administration has provided excellent leadership over the last 4 years, and Ohio has been smashing economic development records as a result. It's important to remember where we were just 12 short years ago as a state. Ohio was second ranked for most job losses in America and was 49 out of 50 states for growth in those 10 sectors that are critical to Ohio's economy. Nearly 12 years later, Ohio is now the go-to state in the American Midwest and becoming recognized as one of the top states in America for economic development. Unemployment is at a near record low. Bond ratings are the best they've ever been. And with a focus on 10 resilient economic sectors, Ohio is the most diverse economically in the Midwest and becoming more diverse at a faster rate than many of our peer states. Coming out of the pandemic, Ohio's experienced 2 straight years of record results for new jobs and payrolls created while simultaneously smashing previous high water marks in new capital investment to our state. When significant capital comes to our state, it is an indicator of future returns for Ohioans. The record payroll numbers are important because they fuel a return on investment for Ohioans, which is so important to all of us. Every deal done by JobsOhio and its network partners, and we're very grateful to have many of our network partners here today, Jeff Hoagland from the Dayton Development Coalition, Kenny McDonald from One Columbus and the Columbus Partnership, Mike Jacoby from Ohio Southeast, Bill Kaler from Team NEO, Kim Lauterbach from Ready Cincinnati, and Dean Monsky from RGP wasn't able to be here with us today. But we work very closely as a team together with the administration to be effective for Ohio's economic development. JobsOhio takes this fiscal responsibility very seriously as our organization and state become more effective and more efficient at leveraging scarce resources to create these large returns. The value of economic development projects continues to return more payroll tax to the state than ever before, driving return on investment to record levels, and the trend is going in the right direction. Thanks to the outstanding collaboration and skilled deal-making of JobsOhio's professionals working with network partners and with the administration, the organization is more fiscally efficient, utilizing the limited incentive dollars and staff in a more productive manner per dollar of payroll and per capital investment committed than ever in its 12-year history. Over the past 4 years combined, the team underspent approved budgets by just over 4%. And for 3 years in a row, the companies working with Team Ohio have rated their interactions at a level considered to be world-class by Independent Net Promoter, an accomplishment that reflects Team Ohio's reputation as business-friendly with a culture to get things done. Ohio's economic diversity means we aren't reliant on just one sector. Economic diversity means resilience. So from manufacturing to automotive and electrification to healthcare, technology, and the new semiconductor industry, we are experiencing an economic renaissance of the American Midwest, and Ohio is leading the way. This is not rhetoric. These are objective, observable facts. 2023 saw another milestone for our organization that Chairman Smith alluded to in his remarks. 10 years ago, the JobsOhio beverage system was established to create a stable funding source for Ohio's economic development through modernized, customer-focused, and efficient operation for the responsible sale and distribution of high-proof spirits. Since then, the beverage system team has been working tirelessly to improve customer experience and facilitate economic growth in Ohio. Lorraine Terry, the JobsOhio Beverage System Managing Director, and her team have done a fantastic job working closely together with Directors Canepa and Maxfield. It's a Team Ohio outcome. And I want to invite her to share some of the highlights of the liquor enterprise. Lorraine, please.
Good morning. Thank you. 10 years ago, a one-of-a-kind model was established. A public entity and a private nonprofit partnership was created. As such, that partnership between the Ohio Department of Commerce's Division of Liquor and the JobsOhio beverage system is unique. We are one of a kind in the United States. And over the past 10 years, our partnership has accomplished a lot. I heard JP mention just yesterday, and I think it's a quote to Lieutenant Governor Husted, those who collaborate the best win. I do believe that's what we have been doing for the past 10 years. When I talk about I talk about the Division of Liquor and the JobsOhio beverage system teams together. We have grown this very unique model. We had to work as a team. We had to make the model work so JobsOhio could do what they do best. No pressure, no pressure. So over the past 10 years, here's a few brief highlights of what we have accomplished. We have modernized distribution twice. First in 2017 by consolidating distribution centers, and again in 2022 with the implementation of the Manhattan Warehouse Management System to give us even more efficiencies, driving cost out of our business and increasing profitability. We've upgraded our inventory management system twice. First in 2017 with an overhaul that allowed for accuracy, efficiency, and reliability. And again, just 30 days ago, to a cloud-based system with even greater accuracy and access to greater data to drive our business forward like never before for over 300 suppliers and all of our 490 liquor store locations. We created a brand. In 2018, we introduced Ohio Liquor to the state, a brand that represents both of our entities of this partnership and has become the brand for the single source of truth about spirituous liquor in Ohio. We stood up not just a call center, but a nationally recognized service center for all of our stakeholders to communicate directly with Ohio Liquor. We strive to improve always, and we do that based on open and honest conversations from our suppliers, our liquor store owners, bar and restaurant owners, associations, and of course our consumers. We improve because we have a channel to hear what needs improved. We increased product selection and availability. We've given spirituous liquor suppliers from around the world a fertile marketplace to grow their brands, not just sell alcohol. We focused on the care and education of customers and released our Raise a Glass Responsibly initiative in 2021. Since that time, more than 25% of all of our social and web content include messaging regarding the responsible consumption of alcohol. We are amplifiers of the conversation about enjoying spirits responsibly. We've been recognized as a top 100 retailer, best of the best in control states, best licensee education program, best trade partnership program, and more. We are the premier control state in the United States. We've turned bottles into dollars and increased our revenue over 55% to $1.74 billion. We shared that success with the state of Ohio with over $489 million in shared profit to the General Revenue Fund. And of course, we kept pace with the needs of JobsOhio and the goal of economic prosperity for our state. In the room with us today are many members of my own amazing team, but more importantly, the Director of the Department of Commerce, Sherry Maxfield, Superintendent of the Division of Liquor, Jim Canepa, Director of Agency Operations, Sean Smith, and Director of Brand Strategy, Kristen Castle, also representing the division. I'd like to personally thank them for being the tremendous partners that they have been over the past 10 years. And to you, JP, and to you, Chairman, and this board, thank you. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for empowering the beverage system team, and thank you for believing in this public-private partnership. I look forward to the next 10 years.
Are there any questions for the board?
Lorraine, maybe this is a chance to spotlight another thing you said in your remarks. Remind us all, what's that number? How much did the profit sharing to the general fund of Ohio? I mean, that's just a huge number that really affects everybody.
Yeah, $489 million over the past 10 years.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a great joy to be able to do that.
Mr. Chairman, one other comment I think should be made that kind of gets lost in the activities, but we just recently went to the market for an additional bond offering to allow us to continue to expand the mission of JobsOhio. We went to the market for $350 million in the public market, and that bond offering was so attractive to lenders that we got almost immediately oversubscribed at a very competitive interest rate. And they'd only do that because they've done the due diligence on the work that Lorraine's done that's demonstrated that we had taken a business that had been operated by the state and converted it to a public-private partnership that's been extremely successful. And then the best thing about that is you can take those funds and those funds, additional funds that Lorraine referenced, and use it for the mission of JobsOhio, which is ever growing, and we're getting more and more requests for the money, and that extra $350 million will be a big asset going forward.
Thank you, John. I'd like to point out too, JP and I serve on the beverage system board that has oversight responsibilities for Lorraine and her team. And just a shout out to Kevin Giancola, Ted Carter, and Betty Montgomery, who are also board members. It's a great group, and it's just a delight working with your team.
Thank you.
Anything else, Lorraine?
No, I would just, teamwork makes the dream work. It's my own quote.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you again today as we recognize the 10th anniversary of the JobsOhio beverage system. We've already acknowledged our wonderful partners, and we do appreciate the teamwork and the collaboration and the service that you all provide to the state of Ohio. It's making a difference. And of that $489 million of profit share that went back into the state general fund, over $200 million of it occurred in the past 2 years. The performance is increasing in greater strength each year, and we appreciate your leadership, Lorraine, and your partnership.
If I could also thank Director Maxfield for joining us today and your team.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, JobsOhio launched an inclusive economic development strategy in late 2019. We announced it in late 2019, launched it in 2020 as part of our expansive JobsOhio 2.0 strategy. And a part of our 5-year economic development plan. Governor DeWine, at the front end of the pandemic, asked us to take a closer look at what more we could do to ensure all Ohioans in all parts of the state had tools and opportunities to participate in Ohio's economy. And in 2020, after consultation with our regional partners and many stakeholders around the state and the administration, we launched the Economic Development Inclusion Strategy to provide those tools targeted toward underrepresented population groups and areas of the state that were experiencing challenges. As part of the inclusion strategy, JobsOhio created the Vibrant Communities Program to help support the growth of smaller municipalities across the state. I like to call them Hallmark towns. They're real. They're not just part of those movies we see during the holidays. We have them in abundance here in Ohio, and they do provide a unique lifestyle, quality of life, and an attractive competitive advantage as we're out helping companies expand and helping to attract companies here. It's competitive for workforce. They like those options. We've got them here. But this program, Vibrant Community Program, provided much needed capital for projects that catalyze additional investment into those communities. And so far, for each JobsOhio dollar invested through this program, and I believe we've done 7 of them, there have been nearly 8 additional dollars that have come from other sources. Truly catalytic. College at Elm was one of the first Vibrant Community grants that was awarded by JobsOhio in 2021, and we appreciate the support from the board for that program. I had the honor of attending the grand opening last week, and the energy was really genuine and it was amazing. It was a great example of strong public-private partnership led by Miami University, the city of Oxford, working together with private industry to transform a vacant building into a hub of entrepreneurship for that community. It'll bring jobs, it'll nurture young talent, it will support startups that remain in the community by creating a space for them to call home. And now we'll show you a brief video of that grand opening.
It is with a high degree of enthusiasm, motivation, and excitement that we are here today for this great event. Not only is the facility impressive, what it represents, opportunities, the dreams, the goals, the desires that can all be reached right here under one roof. You can prototype it, you can develop it, you can manufacture it. There are many other incubators in the state of Ohio, but none offer this opportunity.
This space was a vacant building for decades, and it's right across the street from our Oxford Community Arts Center. We had the vision that we could do something very special here in Oxford with it, around an incubator, an accelerator, a greenhouse. And so it's been about 18 months since we got started, and now it's this big, beautiful, vibrant place with collaborative spaces. This space will actually bring together art and technology, and it'll be filled up with students, faculty, staff, and community members in the future who have aspirations about starting a company and doing great things.
One of my goals was to be able to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. So our philosophy is bring the jobs to the people as opposed to bring the people to the jobs. We've developed a company over the past 20 years that brings ideas from concept all the way to commercialization. So what we're doing at the College at Elm is actually bringing that culture up here to be able to take products from start to finish, including the manufacturing system.
We're really excited for the College at Elm. You know, the city of Oxford has a goal to be a 12-month resilient economy. Right now, we're dependent on students, and we're an 8-month economy. So we're going to take strategic steps to see what we can do to get people having a business here that's year-round, jobs that are year-round, people living here year-round. And so this is just one piece of a larger puzzle of a big goal that we have for our community.
Since introducing course culture to the campus community, I have received a tremendous amount of opportunities for my company to grow and develop. And for that reason, I decided to move my company headquarters from Chicago to Oxford at College at Elm.
The $1.5 million that we got through the Vibrant Communities Grant truly was, as it was supposed to be, catalytic. We leveraged the $1.5 investment of JobsOhio, and we've raised $17.7 million, and that's just for the beginning. Our goal is to maintain 3 startups a year and hopefully grow them and keep them in the area. We want to be that lighthouse, that beacon. If you've got a good idea and you don't know where to go, bring it at College at Elm.
Partnerships like this will continue to set Ohio apart as the best place in the country to live, work, play, and build your own version of the American dream right here, which happens to be the vision that JobsOhio has for the state of Ohio. So thank you, Chairman Smith and members of the board, for expanding this program to include 370 communities eligible for the program, nearly 4 times the number previously eligible, opening the door to even more great projects for Ohio's hallmark towns like the one at Oxford. Now I'd like to introduce Christy Tanner, Senior Managing Director for the Inclusion Program, to share more about these programs. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, JP. Mr. Chairman, thank you, members of the board. So happy to be here and share a little bit more about the program. Ohio is really fortunate to have such a variety and a choice of where people can live. They can be in major metro areas, they can go to micropolitan communities, they can live in small towns or in rural areas. All of these options are here. But as JP said, so many of our small and mid-sized cities across the state have started to lose population. They've lost jobs over the last few decades, and they've really struggled to be able to reinvent themselves with the limited resources that they have. There's a really unique opportunity, though, right now in this post-COVID world that we're in, where these small and mid-sized towns across Ohio are starting to see a resurgence from both boomerangs, people that left their hometown, decided they wanted to come back to their hometown and make a difference, and then others that are just ready to leave the big city and move to a place where they can benefit from living in a smaller community and raise their family. And this resurgence in smaller communities is bringing both energy and investment back into those downtowns and back into those places where people want to be. We're starting to see residents and business owners in those small towns putting their own savings to work and investing in placemaking in those communities as a way of giving back to their community. But in these places, the risks are great. The returns are lower than what you'd find if you were doing the same project in a big city. So if you think about construction costs are the same in a small town as they are in a big city, but the rents are lower and the risks are higher. So these investments often need additional support to be able to make them viable. And that's where our inclusion programs can make a difference. Just like the big cities, the downtown is the heart of a community. And from an economic development standpoint, if you're selling the community and you're downtown, as much as you are your industrial site, you have to sell them all because it comes as a package. You're not going to be able to attract outside investment unless you have an attractive downtown. So with that, I'd like to share on the next slide some highlights about the Vibrant Communities program. It was created to assist distressed small and mid-sized cities with catalytic development projects that fulfill a market need and represent a significant reinvestment in a community. Like I said, they're primarily downtown projects. They're vacant buildings. They can be entire blocks or even multiple blocks where added inducement is needed in order to reduce the risk and attract new investment. Many of them are mixed-use buildings. They bring jobs and they bring people back to the heart of the community. The eligible projects that we have can receive up to $1 million in funding or up to 50% of their eligible costs, but on average our investments are much smaller than that. We're looking at what is the difference that we can put into the project to make the project go forward. The projects are required to have an anchor tenant that has to be committed to at least 30% of the total square footage of the project. So typically that 30% is comprised of office space. It could be incubator space like you saw with the Miami University project in Oxford. It could be co-working. Some of them have maker spaces. And in some cases we have light industrial. As you mentioned, JP, there are over 370 communities now that are eligible across the state thanks to the expansion of the guidelines. What they all share in common is they all have a population of less than 75,000, and they have a poverty rate that is at or above the state's poverty rate. And in our eyes, that's what makes them a distressed community and eligible for this program. You can see on the map the dots that comprise what the eligible communities are, and you can also find a list of them on our website. The larger cities and the photos that are featured in this particular slide are the projects that have closed to date. There are 7 of them. And since driving new investment into these communities is what our primary goal is with this program, we do measure our impact based on the leverage. And we do have a leverage ratio now of $8 returned for every $1 JobsOhio dollar invested. But in addition to that, in these 7 projects, we've generated or retained over 300 jobs in these communities. And we know that that's just the beginning because these investments are designed to be, to lead additional investment or follow-on investment in those communities. And I'd also like to point out for the board that just in the 5 short months since we've expanded the guidelines to the program, we have more than quadrupled the size of our pipeline. So those communities that are now interested in the program, we have 22 communities across the state that we're working with that are at all different phases. Our regional network partners have been working with each and every one of them to help nurture their project along and working to bring it forward for review and approval. And for those communities that are not quite ready to receive a Vibrant Communities grant, but are interested in pursuing a grant in the future because they have a great idea, one of the biggest hurdles to implementing a big project in a small community, aside from just raising the capital to get the project done, is to get the project from idea to actual implementation. So communities that have the right partners at the table and that are aligned on their vision can seek support from our pre-project planning grant program that can help fund a portion of their due diligence for the project. It can be up to $20,000 or up to 50% of whatever that due diligence is. It could be engineering, it could be design work, it could be helping them understand what the costs are involved in redevelopment of a building or a downtown block. It can even be helping them build the capital stack and understanding what a pro forma would look like in order to make a project viable so that that community and that building owner can make a decision on whether or not they can go forward with the project. Thus far, we've supported 13 different planning grants across the state, and in that particular program, JobsOhio has invested $1 in return for $4 at the local level that's been invested in those planning programs. And then last but not least, if we look at our JobsOhio Inclusion Grant, this is a program that is geared toward underrepresented businesses in Ohio. The JobsOhio Inclusion Grant was created for businesses that fall either within, they're all within our targeted industry sectors, but they face very unique challenges in growing their business because they're either located in a distressed area of the state or they're owned by an underrepresented population. So for us, that's minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, or owned by someone with a disability. These are primarily homegrown Ohio companies that have an opportunity to grow their business, but they need a little bit of help to get them to that next level. This program can provide grants of up to $50,000 for companies that have a project that will help grow their business and create new jobs. The project can be new or an expanded facility. They could be investing in machinery and equipment. They could be investing in training their employees. It could be a combination of any of those things, but whatever it is, it's a project that we wrap our arms around, just like we do our larger projects, and then we help them advance that forward with these small grants. And while we look at these and we might think these are small projects, and I'll give you a profile, our average project will create 5 to 6 new jobs, and the investment is just over $400,000 on average per project. So they might look like small jobs or small projects, but the impact itself is big. And it's not just big for the company that's making that investment, but it's big for the community, and it's big for the state of Ohio as a whole. When you look at this to date, and this slide says we've supported 310 projects. I just looked at it this morning. We're now up to 315 projects across the state that have collectively created over 1,700 new jobs and retained over 6,000 jobs in the state. You can also see from this slide the breakdown of ownership. So if you're not qualifying by a distressed area, about 80% of the projects do fall within a distressed zip code, and there's a zip code lookup tool on our website. Or you could also qualify based on ownership. 21% of our projects are minority owned, 30% are women owned, 12% are veteran owned, and a handful of them are owned by individuals with a disability. And our goal with this program is not just job creation and investment, but it's also leveraging our funding to attract new investment in these distressed communities and supporting growth of the underrepresented businesses across Ohio. In this program, for every dollar that JobsOhio has invested, these are projects, we've leveraged another $11 in the company's private investment in that business. So we're very proud of the 11% return on that one as well. And just like the Vibrant Communities Grant Program, these are all projects that would not have been able to move forward, but not for JobsOhio support. If we look at the next JobsOhio Inclusion Grant slide, one of the great things about this program is that it allows us to support projects across the state and in places where we don't have many project opportunities because the companies are too small to leverage our traditional JobsOhio incentive programs. So we're reaching a whole new audience of companies across the state that we wouldn't have been able to support otherwise. And when we look at what types of businesses these are, over 50% of them are small manufacturers. Think tool and die shops, metalworking shops, production shops, and the like. These are all the lifeblood of these small communities across the state of Ohio. We also have a significant number of these projects that fall in food and agriculture, one of our other great strengths in terms of our industries. And this comprises about 13% of our projects. These are businesses that started small with some sort of a food or an agricultural-based product, and they've been able to expand into major retail chains. Some of them have gotten their product now, and they're selling in places like Target and Kroger and Giant Eagle, and they're not just selling in Ohio, but they're selling in multiple states now in the Midwest and eventually across the country. So we love these kinds of projects. They're Ohio homegrown, and we're going to continue to support them as they grow. And while retail and other population-based businesses are not eligible for this particular program, we can support those businesses if they started with retail and they're at a point in their business where they've expanded to start to sell wholesale. So in other words, they've taken their product or their service or whatever it might be, and they're now selling it to other businesses outside of just their local community. That's the path that one of our projects that's highlighted on this particular slide took in Meigs County, River Roasters Coffee. Their owners had a dream for their hometown, and they made it a reality. They wanted to be able to build a business and then be able to grow and expand that business just beyond the borders of Pomeroy. And our JobsOhio Inclusion Grant helped them expand into a new production facility and actually be able to achieve that dream. So I'd like to close by sharing a final video with you so that you can see their story and learn a little bit more about how this program has impacted their business.
We were at church one Sunday and the pastor was talking about stop complaining about what your community doesn't have and start doing something about it. And we looked at each other at that point and knew that we had to do this.
River Roasters came about from just the want of having a coffee shop in our area.
When we had that thought, we were footsteps away from what eventually became River Roasters. The money that we needed for a down payment, I jokingly said to Candace, we could sell our house and we could afford to do a good push towards building out the cafe. And she said, let's do it. We set a date, and that was December 1st, 2018. We're going to open, whether we're ready or not. I went to the door, unlocked it, and I started taking orders. And before I knew it, that line was around the building. By 2 o'clock, I think, that day, we were sold out of everything. It was always a thought when we put together the plan, wanting to roast our own beans. We feel like it's a special thing to have something offered that's made in Pomeroy that the community's proud of, and now we can take that product out to other communities and have our name on it. We wouldn't be operating at the same capacity right now without the JobsOhio Inclusion Grant. That grant helped us purchase the roaster. We were able to scale up to a point where we can now move our business into larger accounts, wholesale. We're already starting to sell in other grocery stores, supplying other cafes, just like we had dreamed of from the start.
We would describe River Roasters in a way that is welcoming to everyone, a place where everybody can feel comfortable. We're not just a coffee shop.
It's really cool to be a part of people's morning rituals and becoming a center hub for the community as they go off in their different ways for the day. You know, when new people come in, even from out of town, they'll have some coffee, have some lunch or something like that. They really get that sense of community just as they pass through, like how a small town is, and they may have never felt that before. So, I mean, I think it's a pretty special place.
It is a pretty special place.
Thank you, Christy. Are there any questions from the board on the inclusion programs or anything else?
A couple of points. First, Larry and Candace are here from River Roasters. If you would just wave your hand and say hello. JP, you made a great analogy about Ohio communities looking a lot like the Hallmark movies, but Hallmark movies are on 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, not just during the holidays.
You watch them much more than I do, Mr. Chairman.
I'm told. Thank you. Other questions for Christy? Great report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And if I could add one thing, programs like that wouldn't happen without our local economic development partners. In Meigs County in particular, Perry Varnado is our partner there, and they're really the ones that are out there talking to these businesses and really helping make them grow. So we couldn't do it without them. We thank them for their partnership as well. So, and one other thing I'll add, Larry was just telling me prior to this that they're now up to 18 employees and continuing to grow. So.
Super.
Thank you. Thank you, Christy. What an incredible story for Pomeroy, and literally hundreds of similar businesses around the state that are benefiting from this program and from Ohio's resurgence. And I'll make a comment. Christy, you mentioned the local partners. There's been a lot of exposure for the larger projects and deals. We all see them, and they're highlighted in the media. There have been literally in the last 2 years, hundreds of projects like this across the entire state of Ohio, hundreds. And they take virtually as much human capital to accomplish in project managers, project coordinators, performance and compliance, legal and contracts. And I really want to thank the JobsOhio team working very closely with our regional partners and the local partners, because it is the unseen work that creates these types of outcomes that are great for Ohio's economy and Ohio's competitive advantage. We appreciate the work that you do. Almost exactly 3 years ago, the pandemic exploded into our lives and changed the world forever, and changed Ohio for the better. At the time, we knew our daily lives would never be the same, but we couldn't predict the extent of that change. In addition to the public health crisis, the pandemic ignited economic challenges across the country, including right here in Ohio. Thousands lost their jobs, entire industries suffered losses. We shifted quickly our talent initiative from focusing on the production of STEM talent to focusing on what we could do to help Ohio's displaced workers. Again, part of the governor's challenge to us. Displaced workers in manufacturing, hotels, restaurants, bars, and many others were struggling to make ends meet. These were areas that typically, other than manufacturing, the JobsOhio programs did not touch. But something had to be done to stem this tide, and we wanted to respond to the challenge the governor put in front of us. He led. He put Ohio on the map, and he challenged us to use our own unique model to help. The board approved resources, and the management team and our partners sprung into action, again, leveraging the uniqueness of the JobsOhio model. With Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Husted's and the board's support, we gathered an impressive list of workforce development partners to establish Ohio to Work. The bold investment in people and employers was designed to reskill and upskill displaced workers and match them to employers who needed to fill unfilled jobs. We had a particular focus on underrepresented population groups and partnerships. Those were impacted at disproportionately high levels. We set ambitious goals, and as the initiative transitioned at the end of last year, I'm happy to report that once again, Team Ohio smashed the ambitious goals that we set. Many Ohioans who were assisted not only survived thanks to this effort, but they have thrived. Today, we're proud to see Ohio to Work participants enjoying new careers, or with the individualized support and upskilling provided, they're excelling at their respective current fields. But perhaps the most significant measure of the success of Ohio to Work is the legacy it leaves behind. To speak a little bit more about the program is Christy Klaus, our Senior Managing Director for Talent Initiatives at JobsOhio.
Welcome, Christy.
Thank you, JP. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Board. Excited to be here today and to talk to you about the Ohio to Work initiative, and to layer on to Lorraine's and evidently steal Lieutenant Governor's quote. This is about those who collaborate the best win. There is no doubt, after having worked in economic and workforce development in the state of Ohio for as long as I have, that this has been a true partnership and collaboration at completely different levels than we have ever done in at least the last 20 years or 30 years of my experiences across the state. And so excited to just be able to celebrate that and to talk to you guys about what has been sustainable as we transition into maybe more of our normal role. So if you go to the next slide. All right, so what was it? And what was the guiding principles to lay the foundation for what we were doing with Ohio to Work? As JP mentioned, we were in a unique position as JobsOhio with our funding mechanism that was stable and flexible. We were able to spring into action when other budgetary constraints were questionable at that time, as we had 16.4% unemployment across the state, a spike we had not seen in many, many decades. So how could we spring into action and really leverage our unique ability in order to help unite an effort called Ohio to Work with our state partners to help those that were displaced get connected to employment opportunities? Early on, we outlined key guiding principles, and those were we should not recreate wheels. There are many partners in the state, there are programs. How can we just make sure that we're helping collaboration and pulling those threads together to amplify the work of those partners that are already doing great work across the state. We wanted to make sure we were co-designing the effort in hopes and what became reality that this would be sustainable once we exited the and transitioned this into the regional partners that you saw. And then make sure we were biased for action and agile and nimble. I think those two pretty much go hand in hand. At the beginning, we assumed that we were not going to understand how the pandemic would impact and or unfold in the macroeconomic environment, let alone the labor market. So we knew going in, we were gonna need to be nimble and agile and really work with our partners and listen a lot and ebb and flow as the 2 years unfolded as it has. If you go to the next slide. So our vision as we set out on this effort technically in September of 2020 when we launched in Cleveland, as you saw by the map that JP was showing, that was really a hands up from Team NEO and Bill Kaler to say we have partners, let's make sure that we have the right partners like Magnet, who's already doing great work up in Northeast Ohio, and let's just pilot there, and then let's see if it can scale across those other markets that you saw. So we laid out very early with those partners what the features would need to be, and it was outreach and marketing. How can we make sure we're touching those individuals who had been impacted by the pandemic, were sitting on the sidelines, very confused, as many of us don't want to remember, but remember March of 2020 through the summer of 2020 and into the fall, there's just a lot of questions about their future, questions about safety, a lot. And so how could we wrap our arms around them and make sure we're reaching them in new ways through our partnerships? Innovation and tech-enabled tools, especially early on, we had to stand up a couple new things, a virtual career fair because we couldn't be in person, and those kinds of things. And so we enabled technology to provide connections and provide those employers opportunities to touch those job seekers. And then at the heart of it are coaches and our coaching organizations. Those individuals who are hand to hand every day with those job seekers, trying to make sure that they're career coaching those individuals. And especially, again, back in the early days of the pandemic, it was a lot about life and safety, and even outside of just the job connection. So we were trying to support those coaches and those coaching organizations, and you'll hear a little more about what's sustainable going forward and some of the impact we made. Connections to the employers and training providers through forums, again, like virtual career fairs, and then support for reskilling, and need to give credit to our state partners from the reskilling perspective. So we had community colleges in particular at the table. We had technical centers at the table. We also had our private partners, and in particular Tech Elevator, and Anthony Hughes kind of gave us a, hey, let's think creatively about how we could help fund assistance to students who are looking for these opportunities, especially if we wanted to touch underrepresented populations or those most impacted. A lot of time they have pieces of the funding that are just not there through the system, and they are not able to access loans or have co-signers. And so we stood up an income share agreement, and 4 training providers stepped up with us, including Tech Elevator, We Can Code It, Cable Academy, and color-coded labs to help us with income share agreements. And it really did make a difference for those students as kind of last mile financing. They don't pay it back unless they get employment after graduation from a year from that graduation date. And it really did open the door for those training providers to different represented populations. And so we're excited about that. And then the employer commitments. None of this really works unless you have employers at the other end that are open to and have those job opportunities. So if you go to the next slide. Those features are basically laid out in a roadmap. This is nothing new to anyone who does economic and workforce development. However, I would highlight a couple pieces that are a little different or new, which is just the level of collaboration and the level of engagement across that system throughout the 2 years. And you'll hear that is what truly has been the sustainable piece. Those relationships and that collaboration is just, very impactful across these markets. So you can see here, you go left to right, you have a displaced individual. Those partners in the coaching and support area, like the Cleveland-Cuyahoga County OMJ system, the Urban League of Greater Cleveland, and Goodwill, they have coaches touching those job seekers. So we were trying to help support them, and like I said, they're at the heart of it. Today, we have many sitting in the room that are part of that, those initiatives, not just in the Cleveland market, but those other markets, and really want to just try to make sure that we're highlighting the reunion per se in the room that was here. But it's not that common for these workforce partners, especially at the coaching level, to partner and collaborate at the level that they did within the Ohio to Work market, and really broke down their own barriers and built relationships at a breadth and depth that were not there before. And those will continue and continue to evolve as we kind of go into a different era in 2023 from our perspective. But this is the system that has to help our employers and our job seekers and those that are not engaging back into the workforce. Those are the entities that are at the heart of that. And those are the coaches that are going to help us tap into latent talent pools as we move forward with some other talent strategies. Assessments and coaching, assessments within that coaching mechanism, we engaged Pymetrics first, Nimble and Agile. We heard from the team in those coaching support systems, it wasn't working, so we shifted and did UScience. UScience is now scaling across the state and through those markets as a sustainable piece of the endeavor. And then reskilling opportunities, we already touched on that. Employers at the heart of it. Falgren Mortine was our partner in making sure that we had the outreach strategies and really worked with those partners in the coaching system to be creative, learn new opportunities to outreach to those that are job seeking or that are sitting on the sideline. Our business champions, our network partners, can't say enough about our network partners. Again, Team Neo was the first, but Ready Cincinnati, Dayton, One Columbus, as well as Regional Growth Partnerships stepped up with us to make sure that we were reaching out with the employers and the employer partners, and then the operations managers in each of those markets were critically important. Magnet, Sinclair, WDBCO, and LISC were critical partners to make sure that this was all operational, more at the regional and the local level than JobsOhio was able to do. So you go to the next slide. So to JP's point, we were successful. We smashed our goals. We thought back in 2020, going into 2021 with our markets, that these were really far-reaching goals. They were aspirational goals, and I think just the level of collaboration, the dynamics in the market changes from 2021 to today allowed us to really excel and to knock those goals out of the park. We had over 200 employers part of this effort. We had 32 training providers, 42 community-based organizations, and 85 job coaches all tied into this effort. And like I indicated before, those are lasting relationships that will continue as we do our economic development efforts and try to make sure that we're bringing companies with great opportunities to Ohio and that Ohioans have economic mobility and see a future for them. If you go to the next slide. So key takeaways for us, learning opportunities for our partners. This was a collaboration of key takeaways from those 5 markets and all the partners that were embedded in it, as well as from our perspective at JobsOhio. But really, this was an effort to connect job seekers to employers. But what we found through this effort was workforce development partners in the ecosystem were able to collaborate and work at a completely different level and to really truly understand those in-demand jobs and get connected to employers. For some of these job-seeking coaches, this was the first time they had actually met with the HR and talent acquisition teams in those employment opportunities. So it is a different dynamic when you're coaching an individual to understand the culture of that company, what their application process looks like, all of those dynamics. It's just a different way of being able to connect those seekers then to those employment opportunities. So that depth of coaches being able to meet with employers was a big lesson learned, and I know there's no doubt within our partners that will live on past our transition that started in January. We also was able to, leverage modern technology and tools. U-Science is one of those examples and the coaching portal that Digital Mindset helped put us help build with us. Those are technologies that will live for them to work together, collaborate, and assess aptitude for job seekers going forward. And then our marketing and grassroots efforts. Can't thank Fallgren and the openness of our partners enough to being creative and very nimble and agile over the 2.5 years to think differently about how we outreach these populations, meet them where they are, think about English as a second language. I mean, we were doing a lot of creative things as we listened to our partners. And so a lot of those assets and those ideas will remain as we go into 2023 and beyond. And then the training opportunities, we're always excited about individuals being able to skill themselves and the partnerships that we built there. And then just the fact that working together created a stronger community and a unified state. We now have each other's cell phones we can call. We have just a deeper relationship, and when we know that we can just rely on each other, I think that's gonna just help the employers at the end of the day tackle this workforce challenge that we have in front of us. Being at JobsOhio in 2011 when we saw those stats early in your presentation, JP, I would take on the challenge of not enough talent to help skill and individuals than when we had way many people unemployed and just not enough job opportunities. So I think that's the end of my presentation. We'll welcome questions, and again, just thank you to everyone in the room who helped Ohio to Work. The team at JO that did it, Amy and John, Andrew Dietzel, Evan. It truly was a all-in team approach, Elise, Fred, and others. So thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Questions from the board members?
Christy, thank you.
Great initiative, great outcomes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does that complete your report, JP?
That completes my report. Are there any additional questions?
Good report. You had the two Christies doing your report. You've got great talent, JP. I'm just giving you a hard time. You have great talent, and it's amazing what's going on, and I think they both gave us real insights into the depth of the work that's going on in JobsOhio, and really appreciate not only the two Christies, but all the team that work together to make JobsOhio work.
Thanks, Jerry Sue. Let's move to the committee reports and kick it off with the executive committee report. The executive committee met yesterday approving our minutes from December 8th, and we had one action item. We reviewed, recommended, and the board approved one candidate, Carl Gephardt, for the appointment by the board to the JobsOhio Independent Review Panel. The IRP provides feedback to management about grant and loan offers to ensure the accountability of the proposals and their adherence to the board's guidelines. We have up to 5 members of the IRP are appointed to 1-year terms to serve without compensation at the pleasure of the board. Each individual recommended for appointment must be qualified by experience and/or expertise in one or more of the following areas: business, finance, investment management, corporate governance and ethics, economic development, or foundation grant criteria and processes. The committee found that Mr. Gephardt met those qualifications. During our meeting, the committee also reviewed a guidance document on the prohibition of insider trading to be included as part of the ongoing training of all directors, officers, and all employees of JobsOhio, as well as during the onboarding of new directors and employees. And finally, the committee reviewed its charter and other governance matters and asked the secretary to prepare written governance guidelines for both current and future members of the board. And those guidelines were discussed further during our meeting yesterday. That completes my report. Let's move to the audit committee. Dr. Jerry Sue Thornton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Audit Committee of JobsOhio Board of Directors met yesterday morning, March 1st. An executive session was held to discuss legal matters prior to the beginning of the traditional business for the committee. The minutes of the December 8th, 2022 meeting were approved as submitted. The committee then received the quarterly compliance update from Senior Director of Compliance, Claudia Harrington. The third quarter compliance update included a review and an analysis of risks and the organizational security training for all employees. She then reported on the accreditation transfer from the Ohio Association of Not-for-Profit Organizations to a new entity, the Standards of Excellence Institute. She outlined the work to be done towards the new accreditation requirements, and then she gave a detailed report on the annual performance of clients and organizations. Following her report, a presentation was made by the corporation's IT consulting firm, V2 Technology, on cybersecurity and ERM. Scott Wilson and Dave Howard, the two principals, provided an in-depth summary of any significant incidents, training and awareness programs, and a maturity assessment of the framework and best practices of implications. Next, members of the JobsOhio financial and accounting team provided a detailed financial update for both of the previous quarters and the fiscal year to date. A detailed budget to actual reviews of expenditures and revenues for the same period were provided for the committee. Finally, the committee reviewed several lines of insurance coverage carried by JobsOhio, which has been renewed at the beginning of February. And with that, Mr. Chair, it concludes my report.
Thank you, Jerry Sue. Any questions for Jerry Sue? Let's move to the Compensation and Workforce Committee, and Mr. Rick Platt is going to give the report for General Lyles, who was with us all day yesterday but was unable to join us this morning. Rick?
Mr. Chairman, General Lyles gave a written report. The board secretary has that. Let me give the abbreviated version. The committee met 2 times during the quarter, and at its meeting last week, the committee received and discussed commentary from its independent compensation consultant, Pay Governance. JobsOhio's Managing Director of Human Resources, Sheila Akins, also provided updates on the corporation's various human resources programs within the organization. And at its meetings last week, the committee recommended to the full board, and the board later approved, the 2023 goals and objectives for the CEO. The committee discussed an update on the committee's request to have management engage a consultant to conduct a human capital assessment. And finally, the committee devoted a majority of its time at each meeting in executive session reviewing materials, engaging in extensive discussion on the annual recommendations to the board related to the compensation of the executive employees of JobsOhio, as well as the compensation of the president and CEO, JP Nassif. That's the summary of General Lyles' report.
Thank you, Rick. Any questions? Let's move to the Investment Committee. Mr. John Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our committee met yesterday with all members present, either in person or virtually, and we began the meeting by reviewing and approving the minutes of our December 8th meeting. During this third quarter of the fiscal year, the committee has reviewed and approved or recommended to the full board a total of $18.34 million in new incentives in 6 core economic development projects. The companies involved in just those 6 projects agreed to create 1,625 new jobs, with an associated payroll for those new jobs of $94.1 million. Those are contractual commitments that these firms have made. Also, as part of this investment, those 6 firms will make capital investments in Ohio of nearly $591 million. The committee also reviewed and recommended the approval of 3 talent acquisition service programs. Actually, I'll comment a little more about those in my final thoughts. To support the talent acquisition for the Intel project, and then reviewed and recommended targets for each of the 10 JobsOhio sectors for performance measurement of JobsOhio for 2023. Finally, the committee reviewed the quarterly report from the corporation's outside investment advisors, Cardinal Investments, as well as the quarterly report on the results of the Growth Capital Program, which is an entirely separate part of the investment program for JobsOhio, for the previous quarter. With that, Mr. Chairman, that summary, I conclude my report.
Thanks, John. Any questions for John? Let's move to final thoughts, the last item on our agenda. And John, you referenced you had some specific things you're going to follow up on, so go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I normally go at the end, and all the good stuff gets taken before it gets to me, so I'll have the opportunity to go first this time. In all seriousness, you heard the governor speak, and something that we've talked about for the many years that I've been on the board, is that at JobsOhio, we have a major challenge of attracting new entities and job growth. But the other side of that challenge is you have to have the people, the staff, the people in place to make those jobs work and to fulfill them. And that is a major challenge. The governor mentioned it. We've talked about it. That's one of the reasons JobsOhio was created a dozen years ago. And the other challenge we have, which is incumbent in that, is that we need to attract people from outside of Ohio. We just can't be robbing Peter to pay Paul to fill jobs. And also, we need to stop the hemorrhaging of quality people in Ohio, primarily college students, from leaving Ohio. We want them to stay. And that's part of the way we need to fill these positions that we have. And yesterday was really a momentous day for the board, because as the investment committee recommended to the full board, which was subsequently approved, the investment of $15 million in just 3 contracts, near-term contracts, which we would be investing JobsOhio dollars, and those contracts will be administered by Christy Klaus and her team, who you saw earlier in the talent acquisition area, with the idea that just for the Intel, in our commitment to Intel and Project Slice, which is where those $15 million will be invested with 3 professional firms who will assist JobsOhio and Christie's staff in attracting and retaining quality new associates for Intel. It's a major commitment, $15 million in cold hard cash. There's a lot of states that couldn't begin to do that, and the only way we can do it is through the success of JobsOhio. So we have some exciting things coming forward, and we're really looking forward to it.
Thanks, John. Lori.
Sure, thank you, Chairman. I personally want to thank the JobsOhio staff. Yesterday, our company had the opportunity to host the private board meeting and the committee meetings, and we really enjoyed that. That was at our Columbus office, and that campus is on the northeast side, which is just minutes from the Intel investments. And Intel still remains one of those mega deals that we're really proud of. But more importantly, yesterday, after spending the day in meetings and just seeing all the data presented relative to the future project opportunities, there's still so much to be excited about for the entire state and for every single JobsOhio region. Yesterday, we had the chance to review the pipeline, and that pipeline quantifies all the potential deals and shows us the potential for the creation of new jobs, the retention of jobs, and the new capital investments. And that pipeline remains strong. And Ohio remains, in my opinion, still the envy of a lot of other states that are vying for those same investments. And so I just want to say thank you to JP, to the entire JobsOhio staff and all of our JobsOhio regions, the governor, lieutenant governor, and his team, because there's significant effort that goes into having a pipeline of that size that can, to keep Ohio on the current trajectory of prosperity today and into the future. So thank you for those efforts.
Thank you, Lori, and thanks again for hosting us. And for me, the highlight was visiting that room you have on the second floor, celebrating your grandfather and the great history of the Cornucocosing organization. So, great story. Mr. Rick Platt.
Mr. Chairman, in our audience is Wendy Murphy. Wave, Wendy, go ahead. Wendy's spent a career working on matching up people with job opportunities at companies, but one day she had a slip of a tongue and invented a new word. Economic development, emphasized the word mom, and I guess I spotlight that in my final thoughts today because I think that's a grassroots charge for all of us in this room, anyone on there, to think about economic development and how we can, what that word means, it came to mean, is how we all have a job to do in connecting job opportunities with the people that we know, whether it's a mom or a dad, a grandparent or a great-grandparent. So that's what I'd like to highlight today with Wendy coming into my mind because she's sitting right out there.
She was afraid she was going to give a speech.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Rick. Scott Sullivan. It's on.
Is it on? Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, JP. Thank you, Lori, for hosting us yesterday. Fantastic facility and company, and appreciate the hospitality. That was great. I, too, like the second floor. That was a great tour. Thank you to the JobsOhio team and these your tireless efforts. The momentum continues. It doesn't get old. Another good quarter. And like Lori had talked about, the pipeline is full and the opportunities are there. I also enjoyed the Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Husted sharing their thoughts, and particularly with the budget. This $2.5 billion in sites is, an economic development dream. I mean, it's so important, and to be equitably spread across the state. It's impactful. The workforce and the focus on people. We heard from Lieutenant Governor Husted yesterday about visiting all the career centers across the state. Years ago, those were not too full. Now they're at capacity, and investments that are made with tech cred, academic institutions, career centers to build that workforce, to fill all of these jobs that all of you all and JobsOhio are creating each and every day. The regional innovation hubs is also exciting, and if you look at all of these things, they're greatly complementary to the mission of JobsOhio. So it was great to have the insight on that. I guess I'd use my comments here to encourage all of us on Team Ohio to reach out to your local and your state elected officials and support this. This is a game changer, and it keeps the momentum not only in 23, but 2024 and beyond. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Scott. Jerry Sue Thornton.
Well, I'd like to begin by congratulating JP and his team. 10 years of service to Ohio. That's the JobsOhio's been in existence a long time. And I've been on the board more than half of those 10 years. And as I have looked at these last years and the leadership, JP, that you've provided and your team sitting in the audience and maybe some not here today, it's been really incredible to watch that progress. And I think as we had the board meeting yesterday, all the new projects coming forward that Christy Tanner outlined and so many others that team members yesterday talked about, it just makes us know the magnitude of the work of JobsOhio. When the governor called to ask if I would continue my service on the board, I said yes, because it's about people. And not only you and your team, but it's about people who are being helped in the state of Ohio. And coming from workforce training and education, it means a lot to me to be able to serve on the board where I can see every day the opportunities that are presented to Ohioans to go back to work, as Christy Klaus pointed out in her presentation, but new opportunities for people who are coming out of our colleges and universities to find careers and be able to stay in the state of Ohio. So we are so grateful to the partners out there who come to our meetings. We thank you for traveling here, as well as the team members. Many of you report to us at each board meeting, and we really do get great insights into the daily work that you bring forward. So congratulations, JP, 10 years of service. Hope to be around another 10 years and more progress to come.
Thank you, Jerry Sue. JP.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We were able to hear today some of the story behind the story. Again, referenced, it's easy to see the big projects, they get the most headlines, or it's easy to look at JobsOhio and say, they have a lot of money, that's why the projects are coming. And we've heard Governor DeWine reference it's Ohio's time, and those that collaborate win, and live your own version of the American dream. And the JobsOhio platform, which is a platform, really projects and embodies those things But the uniqueness of the platform, beginning with the team, are what changed the game for us. Any state can throw money at deals. We watch states throw money at deals. The reason Ohio is achieving a return on investment in ever-increasing numbers is because of the team. And when Christy Klaus and her talent team are helping a company attract talent, that's Ohio's reputation following through on its promises. But attached to Christy are not only her team members, but there's performance and compliance. There's marketing and communications and stakeholder engagement, so our stakeholders are aware of what's happening and they can provide leads and opportunities. There's wonderful videos that you saw today that really bring the projects to life, not just so we can celebrate, but so it can inspire and educate other potential entrepreneurs in other parts of the state to live out their American dream. So people like Ryan Squire and Curtis Smith who put those videos together, it's the story behind the story. So I just like to say that we still see a strong pipeline. We do see some impact from the headwinds, but with the alignment of the administration and their budget, but really the alignment of the culture that we've got and our passion for Ohio, we can endure any storm because we've endured them in the past. And I want to say I'm grateful to the board because this board volunteers its time. They spend another 2+ days here, away from in the business, but away from your business, and days in reviewing materials. We touch board engagements, close to 50 board engagements per year. That brings the board together with the staff, and it allows us not just to dole out money for deals, but to really bring job growth, capital investment with a significant return on investment for the state. And that's what we're all very grateful for and very proud of. So thank you for the opportunity to make the remarks today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, JP, and thank you for your team for the great work you're doing. I just want to reference a quote you shared earlier in your remarks around Ohio as the go-to state for economic development. That quote was shared yesterday on CNBC. So the word's getting out, and it's all because of the work, not just Jobs Ohio, but the team that's here today, and many of you, whether you're partners or other secondary partners, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but all of you play an important role in the state's economic development, and Team Ohio is really, really important. So as we wrap up, I would just ask and make sure that Lorraine and Christy and JP, Terry's here, and some other members of the Jobs Ohio management team can just stay behind, and if anybody has questions you want to follow up with, take advantage of this opportunity while we're all here together. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and seconded. We are adjourned without dissent. Thank you.